Can you put a figure to it? Can you paint a picture as briefly as possible as to what Nigeria has lost not having a national carrier?
Anyway, first of all, he's just told you there are close to 500 pilots that are trained that are out of job. Government is funding an institution to train pilots, but there is no place to take them in. Our airlines are using aircraft that are flown by foreign pilots. Most things are done by foreigners. Yet we have a school that we are funding to train manpower with no place for it. Now, the other thing is the amount of money we spend trying to fund other economies. When Nigerians travel, we are one of the biggest travelers in Africa and in the world. Each time a Nigerian travels, he's paying money into a foreign account. Our tickets are priced in dollars, though we pay in naira. So we're actually funding every economy in the world except ours. So every time a Nigerian travels, we're paying outside. That's 100% loss. What I think we need to begin to do, first, let's stop doing the stupid things of the past. Let's start doing smart things and let's plan for the future. What are the smart things we need to do? We need to be able to look at a model that has worked. We try to create models out of our mind. For me, I travel around Africa. I've seen different countries start airlines, and they've done very simple things. Beside us here, Togo have started an airline, Askai. Started with 2 aircraft, borrowed from Ethiopian Airline. Ethiopian Airline does the management. Askai today probably carries more passengers than Arik. They're actually one of the biggest airlines we have around here. And it was a small, and they're doing the same thing. They've just bought 49% of Rwanda Air. Rwanda is a small country. The airline has maybe 12 destinations, and they have less than 10 aircraft. And now they are going wide body. They are flying all over. They just had management agreement with ET, who provide chairmanship and technical assistance. ET is doing the same thing with Malawi. So other people have found out that you don't need this grand idea. There is something I have found out. If a Nigerian ever goes into a partnership with a European company for something like an airline, after 2 years, they are going to accuse you of corruption and they are going to pull out. It's never going to work. Because most people have a mindset about working with the Nigerian and Nigerians. They think we are corrupt, maybe right or wrong.
And so they want to play that game with us.
They create a situation where they don't lose anything. And once you begin to get smart enough to want to claim what is yours, they accuse you of corruption, they scuttle it. So if you want to run a proper national carrier, look at models that had worked elsewhere. And now say, how do we adapt it? Government shouldn't own 100%. The Askai example, fantastic. We could apply it here. Don't try to be Emirates overnight. Don't try to be Qatar overnight. Don't try to be Etihad overnight. You could start small, you could grow, and we have the population to support it. Our pilots need to get employed. Our engineers need to get employed. If you've ever been to Bole in Ethiopia, or what they are trying to do in Kenya, Ibankasi, or you go to Dubai and see the airport cities they are building, the whole of Ajao Estate, Mafoluku, and the places in Egbeda and Co., all should be part of our aviation city. There should have been a lot of work to support the aviation environment from these places. You create employment, Captain George said that Ethiopia had other things, didn't have other things, so they only did aviation. Right and wrong, because they still do coffee, they still do roses. I went with an Ethiopian delegation to Japan. They weren't talking airline. They were talking about agri, about other things, which were bigger exports of this country. But the things they knew how to do well, they did very well.
Okay, let me go to Captain Georgie. The gentlemen in the studio seem to be on the same page with you as far as, ownership of an airline, if it does take off eventually. You did talk about going to the capital market, if I got you right there, to seek, funds and support, some kind of collaboration. Is that the way that we should be going? Going forward for this government as it plans to bring back a national carrier, what are some of those things that you would want to advise this government to do in the short term? And especially, considering that Ikechi has said here that, look, you don't have to start big. You can start small and expand.
Now, you see, listen, as I said, I'm not a sentimentalist. You know, I'm a businessman. Look, Crystal Lube is there. When we went to Victoria Falls, Arusha in Tanzania, I produced a model of privatized airline, Air Nigeria. Chris was there with me. I delivered the lectures. Brian Davis of Kenya Airways came and met Chris Alibe. Please, can I borrow the paper Captain Georgie did delivered? He said, by all means, take it. He took the same paper, go and meet Arab Mae. Arab Mae, with the political will, say, go ahead and give us the privatized airline. The same paper that we produced to create a new national airline, where we failed for political reasons, the same paper Brian Davis used to create a viable airline in Kenya. Now, when you look at it again, look, what the government might do if they need a national airline, they have to go what you call a sweat equity. I discussed that with Chris Alibe. We used to exchange papers up to today, up to tomorrow, we are exchanging papers. The government will come like an umbrella behind you. What do you want? What concession do you want? A, B, C, and D. Okay? Then the existing private airlines too should be extended the same privilege, the same courtesy, because they have been doing it for the past 13 years. So if they did a national carrier, they have to start what we call by sweat equity, looking at other airlines again. Then you start on from 20%, 25%. Then when they see it working, go to capital market, make some money. But to me, what is our priority now? Security, health, education, rural development. Yes, we know. When we started Air Nigeria, it was catapulted. They brought a fraud called Virgin Nigeria. If I know there's no need crying over what you call split milk, but if we continue the way we were at the time, Ethiopian Airlines will be just dancing behind us. But today we miss the mark. To start where we stopped, it will cost money, it will take time. Unfortunately, that's the way I saw it, that's the way I look at it. I produce about 48 volumes of documents for the privatization of Nigerian Airways. You go to my library, all the documents are there now. It's the model to start an airline. I used to work for British Airways as a manager in the Scottish division as an engineer. Later on, I go and train as a pilot. So I used British Airways model at the time. During the time, British Airways were losing money. Then in 1978-79, Margaret Thatcher brought in Colin Marshall and Lord King. They wrote up all the debt, recapitalized the airline, brand new aeroplane. Today, British Airways is an envy of the world. This was exactly the model I introduced, exactly the model we are going to do. Chris Alibe was there. Unfortunately, political fiat killed the whole thing. So please, I think what you're going to do, go back to history and blame those who are the problem of this country, for God's sake. They are still around, they are still alive. So please, you know, I'm just because, and then ask a question, what happened to the assets of Nigerian Airways that greatly outweigh the indebtedness of Nigerian Airways? Half of Ikeja belonged to Nigerian Airways. When I did the privatization, I refused what you call, what they call asset stripping. You don't strip it and sell the assets. Use the asset to recapitalize. I've done a bit of a financial matter, but what happened when you appoint a managing director? He cannot read financial statement. He don't know what you mean by profit or loss account. You know, so you just brought somebody from the cooler to say, now, for example, whenever there's a coup, they brought in somebody from Air Force to come and run the national airline. When you are in Air Force, your main priority, when you go to the budget, you defend your expenditure. There's no revenue. So
okay, Captain Georgie, let me come in here. Sorry, Captain Georgie, let me come in here. Look, the aviation sector contributes some 1.4 or so % to the GDP. Some experts like yourself have said that Nigeria can actually do a lot better. Can we even talk about turning around this economy? And like Ikechi has said, the people who don't travel, and you know, with the situation that we have where for every ticket a Nigerian buys, he's actually buying into another person's economy, you know, at the expense of our own economy. What can we do right now in practical terms? That's what I want us to achieve here, you know, to move it forward.
Thank you. looking at the future, because that's what I'm doing.
Yes.
Otherwise, I think that in spite of what we say about ourselves individually, our generation and the generation before us should be held responsible. In fact, and today we are determining that the future of our children, that they shouldn't have, there should not be any airline. I think that's generational insensitivity on our part. Okay, but having said that, look at it. Government, like I say, should not own any airline 100% anymore. No more than 20%. Like George said, Captain George said, we've been talking about sweat equity. Government doesn't even have to put its own money. There are so many things government can do to float an airline, facilitating it, and convert that sweat into equity in the airline without putting its own money. But government can facilitate very soft loan, soft facility for the takeoff of that airline. And then we should grow it as own airline. We should not get people to grow it for us. Not that we should not have managers, like he said, Ethiopia
should it be handled as a strictly, business entity? Should be for profit.
It's going to be completely business entity, no longer social. This thing. It should be a business entity that operates efficiently, but government should hold some equity to give it a sovereign cover.
Okay.
If we give it a sovereign cover, there are various models. There are those who own 100%. After Etihad, Qatar, Emirates, they are 100% owned by their government, and they are the most profitable airlines in the world. So government ownership is not an issue, but we have not shown the discipline to run a business owned substantially by government. So we should move out of that model completely. One should bring in the model where government has just a sovereign cover on that airline, but substantially it should be private sector driven. You should have some equity, part of equity to be held by foreign investor, because the airline industry today, if you don't team up with other carriers and whatever, you are not going anywhere. You just become tiny.
Something like the Star Alliance?
Yeah, all those things. Even sometimes the alliances are the airlines, big airlines today, Emirates, Etihad, they are pulling out of their alliances. They are creating their own structure. They are buying up small airlines in other countries. Etihad has bought up, even in Germany. The European airlines are so angry about these airlines because their efficiency is predatory efficiency. That's what they operate. And then when you look at it, Emirates is building airport, is collaborating with Angolan airline. He wants to make it East African hub. If he makes it the African hub, forget about Lagos being a hub, which is huge loss for our country. So the earlier we run, like the minister said, they want to hit the ground running. I pray that it's not the budget that is keeping them in one place, because they've not started running. I hope they will run so soon, because the dangers are very severe. It's not the national carrier that will kill our domestic airline. No, our domestic airline will be killed by these foreign interests that have bought up, that will buy up all smaller airlines around us, capacitate them, and then they will overrun us.
Isn't that happening already?
So yeah, it's gradually happening with Sky, like he was saying. But Emirates is coming through Angola. And when it comes through Angola, we'll be done, we'll be finished. It's going into Southern Africa. And we are sitting down here. They are not coming into here because they know this is the market, and they will clean up the market, because we are not doing what we should do. We are signing off BASAs to many countries without any protection. So first, we should declare the aviation industry, the airline subsector, an infant industry. An infant industry, because they have not grown over the years. They are still infants. We need to help them. But helping them does not mean we should not give a national carrier that should give them the leadership. There's no leadership in the industry. Everybody is operating on its own, and there are no standards. There are no benchmarks. Go to the airport, you will see there are no benchmarks.
And speaking of standards, efficiency, security, air safety, these are very, very important. If we're going to talk about, the aviation industry that is well run, especially, talking about national carrier. There was a time, unfortunately, that aircraft were falling from the skies in Nigeria, and, confidence dropped with that. Are you saying no to that? Is that If a national airline comes back, how are we going to ensure, that these three vital areas are actually, not taken for granted?
In order to answer that, I go back to what I said in the beginning, that an emerging nation should stop doing stupid things, start doing smart things, and plan for the future. Some of the stupid things we did in Nigeria is not bothering much about regulation of both the economic and the infrastructure. Today, I heard somebody speak at an event in Uganda. He says instead of running a national carrier, an airport has 20% more revenue than an airline. So you can invest in building world-class airports that can serve your people. If you create a hub out of your airport, we have to look for what is the lowest hanging fruit for Nigeria. We already can invest.
And what is that?
Airports infrastructure is probably easier for government to do and probably commercialize or privatize than probably a national carrier. And if we take into situation that there are airlines owned by Nigerians that are already running, all we can do, how do we help these airlines become what we want it to be? And we have like a 2-year window. If we are not able to make aviation a strategic industry in the next 2 years, we'll lose it. Sky has established Lome as a hub. South African Airways is establishing Ghana as a hub. They have fifth freedom rights out of Accra because of partnership with AWA. Emirates is coming. Qatar, as they are discussing with us, they're also discussing with the Ghana government. Etihad, anyway, sees all the African airlines are too small, so they won't buy. So everybody is looking for, because there are 200 to 340 million people in West Africa, and they are extremely mobile. They have probably the highest GDP in the sections in Africa. So how do you plant a pipeline to feed them? The second largest airline in Africa, after Ethiopian Airline, is Turkish Airline. And if you notice, the president is here. We are already signing agreements. They fly to 48 destinations in Africa. ET flies to 53. K-Cube maybe flies to 42 or 43. So these guys are already building pipelines into our system. So the things we need to do in the next 2 years, I believe that we need a national carrier. 170 million people must have an airline it calls its own. If we need to help ARIC represent us, if we need to help Aero, we can do everything to make ARIC a monster airline and say, this is our airline. I don't know the model that works, but I want a national carrier. And we need this done in the next 2 years. We need a massive infrastructural development of our airport. We need an airport city. We need a hub, an airport that works, an airport that is functional, an airport that represents what Nigeria. We are the biggest economy in Africa.
Indeed.
But go to our airport. Does that look like an airport of the biggest economy in Africa? No. So those are the two things. I think we need to create, if you talk about national security, you talk about education, I think we should now talk about aviation. Because it serves more purposes than transportation. Dubai invested in one thing first before the tourism. They invested in aviation. And aviation has used their tourism, which supports every other thing they do. Qatar is doing the same thing. And a country with less than 4 million people has 5 airlines, UAE. And each one of them is a mega player. The only thing that Fly Dubai can't fly here, we are beyond 5 hours of their distance they like to fly. And they use a particular kind of aircraft. They will have been coming here. RAC, they fly to East Africa. Now you have RAC, you have Gulf. These guys have chosen that this is the path, and you could see the consequence of that. The easiest place for Nigerians to go to is Dubai. There are 27 flights out of Nigeria that end up in Dubai every day. Emirates does too. Qatar will end up in Dubai. Etihad will end up in Dubai. Ethiopian Airline will end up in Dubai. Kenya Airways will end up in Dubai.
Wow.
Rwanda Air will end up in Dubai. And they did only one thing right, investing in infrastructure and aviation. So I think those 2 years window, we better take advantage of it.
It is obvious, Captain Georgie, that the potentials for the airline industry are massive. And this is one area that Nigeria can actually tap into if we're to turn the economy around for good. So much has been said, about all of this. But let's even talk about the number of pilots, unemployed pilots that are out there, that the Aviation College is churning out every year, that they don't have where to go. So what happens, what's the future really for them? And indeed, pensioners who have not been paid their pensions for so long with the death of Nigeria Airways.
You see, I always get angry when I get this. Get angry when I have this gross, gross misrepresentation of fact. In our time, when I was in Zaria, a maximum class of pilots is 12. That's all. It's 12. And out of the 12, hardly six graduate. So you produce quality of pilots for the workforce. So now what's happening? Kano State under Kwankwaso have sent 100 pilots to Jordan. How on earth can you send 100 pilots in one place? 2 years, some of them haven't even been trained on the aircraft. So it become a political issue. Niger Delta, also the development man, he now say, Kwankwaso is training pilot to become fighter pilot to go and fight the East or South. So he too, he got his own pilot, loaded the bucket. Those people, they came out with 250 hours with single pilot IFR. They are not even qualified to fly what you call a two-crew concept. You now got over 150. The minimum a pilot can be insured is 500 hours. So you spend the economy, instead of training 10 doctors, you spend money to train one pilot. You are not even talking to the expert. You are not even to the consultant to look at, do you need all this? So what you proliferate the industry with half-baked pilots. Before you even go to start flying, that's what you call multiple crew concept. It means, Eric have started doing that. They interview about 36, hardly 6 have gone through. They paid £12,500 each, send them to Oxford to tell them what he calls SMS and multiple crew scientific concept. This is a private man who tried. Why all this? So everything we do in Nigeria is politics. What a Yoruba man can do, Hausa man can do, Igbo man can do. At the end of the day, we got into a clash and we kill ourselves. There's no standard planning. It becomes kind of a competition where I say, okay, if I don't put my own here, I have a problem. If it doesn't put my own here, Zaria at the time that only trained 12 people, you have Igbos, Hausas, and Yorubas. They interviewed them thoroughly. Somebody from abroad came with examination papers. Hardly 6 will go through. So with all this paraphernalia of saying they are no pilot and company, everybody will go, say, to America, to South Africa, and abroad what you call a pilot license. That pilot license is called a Google paper. So how can we give that job? So the 150, you are wasting your time, wasting your money. All you need is 12 at a time. Then you are saying the foreign pilot. Foreign pilot normally is a private jet aircraft. How many of them are in this country today? That's number one. And number two, Eric, what is the proportion of foreign pilot to the Eric? Sometimes when you are given a financing, like Eric, the financier would dictate the quality of pilot, the minimum hours, and the payment concept. So you have to do that before you liquidate the distance. And secondly, in a foreign registered aircraft, what you have here, if I'm going to Europe as a businessman, I make one flight plan to 28 European countries. Nigerian registered aircraft, if I'm going outside each and every country, I must find a flight plan. So we have to sit down, please. So let's stop being ignorant in the whole of this country. I've been in industry for the past 46 years, for God's sake. All my life is aviation industry. I am challenging anybody to come and sit with me one-on-one to stop all this sentiment, 100 PP follow. You are training what you call half-baked people. Put them in the market. They are not qualified to do anything, for God's sake.
Okay, and I wonder how that will affect the airline industry or this national carrier that we're talking about. If, indeed, are we in danger of turning out half-baked pilots and all those who have one thing or the other to do with the airline industry?
And let me tell you this today, without trying to controvert what Captain George said.
Yes.
I mean, the figures, but I do know that I know some pilots, young pilots who have trained and trained properly, not in Jordan, not in any other place, and they are looking for a job. On my desk, because I'm a consultant, I have a first-class aeronautical engineering graduate. He came, they say, go to NCAA. He cleared all the papers in NCAA. For 2 years, he has no job. He's looking for a job. This is a first-class aeronautical engineer. And I know pilots who have gone, so, oh, you are not type-rated on this. He went back to the US, got type-rated, came back. He's still standing by. He's accepted as this thing. But having said that, you see, if we have half-baked people, we have a regulatory agency today. It did not exist before. NCAA is up to its beat today. There is no quack pilot that can go onto any flight. So the issue of safety, whether technical or whatever, it's not there because NCAA is up its beat and making sure that all airlines, before you are giving a go-ahead, you are certified to take up the pilot, everybody must be properly qualified. I'm not saying there are no mistakes. Mistakes can come at any point in time, but we no longer have the situation where aircrafts will fall off the skies. No, it does not exist anymore, that kind of situation. So we are extremely comfortable in terms of the regulatory agency, what is doing. And if today we cannot use, I mean, I don't think that there may be half-baked trained people, but when the time comes, these people will go through proper training before they are allowed to fly. But what I am saying is that the future of our children is here. The future of this nation is critical, and we must provide for the future. What we are doing today, because of our mistakes of the past, because my generation and the other generation, the earlier generation, destroyed the industry, we should not build for the future.
Ikechi,
no, it's insensitivity.
Let me get a last word from you, and I want you to give us a picture of, you know, what the possibilities are if we were to really harness the potentials of the aviation industry in Nigeria.
You cannot do anything aviation-wise without the political will. Without the president of the country. He mentioned IBB, they mentioned Arab Moi, they mentioned, so without the will of a president and Obasanjo saying this is what I want to do, we can achieve nothing. That's taken for granted.
But this president seems to be willing.
This president, if he puts his feet down and says this is what I'm going to do, the biggest diplomas, the biggest training, most countries you see who have expatriates all over the world, the aviation industry provides the shortest way for indigenes of your country to become expatriates abroad. They earn different money. They open up linkages. There's a Nigerian who I knew who worked for Kenya Airways, became a manager in charge of the whole of Northern Europe. He was still in his 20s when he resigned, and today he's running businesses globally. So aviation provides, I know a lot of the world because I'm aligned to the industry. I go all over the world because of that alignment. I wouldn't have done that if I was doing another job. None of us will have the exposure we have if we are not involved in this industry. So it breaks boundaries, it expands the economy, it provides jobs, and besides, it is the business of the future. You know, I said things, stop doing stupid things, start doing smart things and plan for the future. Aviation for Nigeria is the future.
All right, I have to thank you, gentlemen. Let me begin with Captain Muhammad Joji, former managing director of Nigeria Airways. It's been nice talking with you and hearing you talk about this really passionately too. Chris Aligbe, aviation expert. Yes, we're actually wrapping the show here. All right, and Chris, okay.
They spoke about aeronautical engineers. You don't need that. What you need is hands-on, practical licensed engineers. When a KO come to audit Nigeria, they only found 10 licensed engineers out of the whole engineers. They say, look, we are not interested in what you call aeronautical engineers graduate. You are maintaining aircraft. You don't design aircraft. So that's the problem now we have. Everybody go BSc, MHD, PhD. You don't hold spanners. You don't know what to do. Sit down on the deck and begin to push papers. So the situation is what you need is licensed, practical, Zaria produce licensed engineers.
All right. Thank you very much, Captain Mohammed Georgie, former managing director of Nigeria Airways. Ikechi Uko, a travel expert. Thank you very much for enlightening us this morning. And Chris Aligbe, aviation expert. It's been nice talking with you, gentlemen. I'm further enlightened about this, and I'm sure, hopefully, our viewers are. It's been nice talking with you. Thank you very much, Captain Mohammed Georgie, former managing director of Nigeria Airways. Ikechi Uko, a travel expert. Thank you very much for enlightening us this morning. And Chris Aligbe, aviation expert. It's been nice talking with you, gentlemen. I'm further enlightened about this, and I'm sure, hopefully, our viewers are. It's been nice talking with